open forum following the presentation. In other words, while Shaminda is giving his presentation, we will not be cutting in on him with respect to questions. In the open forum segment, as usual, if you would like to have the floor, you can raise your hand electronically. There's a little palm, along your dashboard there. You can indicate that you want to be have the floor, and when you do, if you could introduce yourself, unmute, of course, to speak, and preferably identify the organization you're with. When you are not speaking, we would really appreciate it if you would make sure that your mic is muted. That's just common sense, and I think at this point we should move the slide along. Yes, as I indicated, it's Achieve Ontario Skills-Based Volunteer Recognition System. This is, I guess you could say, the serious side of recognition, as opposed to the celebratory side. And can we move the slide along one more? And before Shaminda begins his presentation, we just want to point out to you that in view of the COVID-19 emergency, Volunteer NBC until the end of 2020 is offering the Achieve Ontario program and/or system free of charge. And the intention, as it states in the slide, is to uplift and strengthen volunteers and organizations during this pandemic. Certainly the relationship between community service organizations and volunteers is in transition, but to maintain the bonds between the two basic participants is absolutely vital. And volunteers always want to know what the feedback from their organizations are with respect to how they're doing and really what they've contributed. So I think without further ado, I'll hand it over to Shaminda.
Thank you, Robert. I'm just bringing up my slides here. Okay, does everyone see the slide, Achieve Ontario Training, the starting slide?
You're good, Shaminda.
You can see it, Sean? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it too.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our online forum today. For those of you who do not know me as yet, my name is Shaminda Pereira, and I lead the Learning and Development Initiatives at Volunteer NBC. Today's underlining topic is volunteer recognition. A bit of a disclaimer over here. I am known to have an accent, so if there is any word that I've said and you do not understand what it means, please substitute it with the word that sounds close to it, and be careful while you're doing that. At Volunteer NBC, we believe that volunteer recognition should go beyond just saying thank you. We encourage social purpose organizations to make it a strategy that not only reinforces the valuable contribution of the volunteer, but also to highlight them in a way that the entire community sees what they have done. To support you with that, there are three major initiatives that we offer to social purpose organizations in Peel. One is the VOSCARS, our premier volunteer recognition event in Peel, held during National Volunteer Week. The second is the Peel Cares campaign, held to celebrate International Volunteers Day in December. And the third is the Achieve Ontario system, which is a provincial volunteer experience recognition program. In this training, we dive into the Achieve Ontario system. In the context of responding to the COVID-19 crisis, it is important to plan on recognizing volunteers just as much as the response work itself. Responding to this crisis is a mammoth task, no doubt, and volunteers have gone and continue to go above and beyond their usual volunteer roles. So when we settle in with our new normal, whatever that is going to look like, it is important to recognize those valuable contributions of volunteers that help our organizations to push beyond barriers. So to continue with the Achieve Ontario training, the objective of this webcast is to introduce you to the history of the program and to share how to make the system work for you. Just two objectives, yet once you have grasped the system, you will begin to see its potential to make volunteer recognition much more convenient and uniform within your organization. A bit of an overview here. Achieve Ontario is a web-based application that issues an Achieve certificate. The certificate highlights a volunteer's skills demonstrated and gained along with the time contributions. If we are to summarize the main objectives of the Achieve Ontario program, it is to issue a professional certificate that is recognized and respected by the entire community. In other words, the Achieve certificate gives the volunteer a legitimate document that speaks to the skills and competencies they demonstrated or gained through the volunteer experience. The social purpose organizations, you have a uniform and provincially implemented program that further strengthens your volunteer engagement strategy. For the potential employers, now have a tool that they can have faith in and rely on when assessing the experience of a prospect. To volunteer centers across Ontario, like Volunteer MBC, we now have a reputed tool to build the capacity of the social purpose sector. Indirectly, it is a tool for us to advocate on behalf of the sector and to build a case highlighting the significance of volunteer engagement in our community. Here is a sample of an Achieve certificate. You will see 10 elements that form the certificate highlighted using red dots. To assist those who may be joining us only through audio, what I'm referencing by what I'm referencing by the numbered red dots are the positions of the different certificate elements while naming them. Number 1 in page 1 as well as page 2, the issuing organization's brand identity. Number 2, the name of the volunteer. Number 3, the position title. Element number 4, the number of hours the volunteer had contributed up to the date of issue. Number 5, the volunteering period identified by the to and from dates. Number 6, the name, email address, and the signature of the volunteer supervisor. Number 7, the list of skills and competencies demonstrated or gained by the volunteer. Element number 8, the list of tasks performed by the volunteer in relation to the position. Number 9, the list of training and or achievements. Finally, number 10, a box for any comments you want to make to recognize the volunteer in your own words. In addition to those, there is the logo of the Government of Ontario and the 2 logos of the Achieve Ontario implementation project leads, yours truly Volunteer MBC and the Ontario Volunteer Centre Network. In a couple of places before I mentioned that this is a provincially implemented program, I will be failing in my duties if I don't explain how we got such a valuable tool and the various partners involved in bringing it to Ontario. The concept and the launch of such a system was over 1.5 decades ago by CABQ, the Volunteer Centre of Quebec. CABQ launched it with the brand name PREB. PREB is the acronym for the French translation of Volunteer Experience Recognition Program. Seeing the success of the PREB in Quebec, Volunteer Canada started to promote and introduce the system on a national level. Volunteer centers in Ontario, including Volunteer MBC, also participated in this national pilot program. With the participation in the national pilot, Ontario got the perfect opportunity to establish PREB on a provincial level when it was included as a legacy of the Pan Am Parapan Games by the Government of Ontario. Volunteer MBC and the Ontario Volunteer Centre Network partnered to lead the implementation of the program across Ontario. So for the games, over 24,000 volunteers were recognized with PREB certificates. After the games were concluded, again spearheaded by the Government of Ontario, PREB Ontario was rebranded as Achieve Ontario, which brings us to today, where we see the second wave of opportunity to further strengthen the significance of volunteer recognition using the Achieve Ontario program. If you have joined us from Ontario but from out of Peel region, you can get connected to your local volunteer center by visiting ovcn.ca and navigate to the Find My Volunteer Center page. The Ontario Volunteer Centre Network is a collection of volunteer centres from across Ontario. And this page has the contact information of the member volunteer centres. Call them up and you can ask them how to get connected with Achieve Ontario in your locale. With that, please allow me to introduce some of the terminology when referencing to Achieve Ontario. The name of the program is referred to as Achieve Ontario. The certificate issued using the Achieve Ontario system is referred to as an Achieve certificate. The program is a volunteer experience recognition program. And we also appreciate if you can promote Achieve Ontario using the hashtag Achieve certificate. And please do include Volunteer MBC or your local volunteer center, as the case may be, as well as the Ontario Volunteer Center Network in any social media post. That will help us further strengthen the Achieve certificate credibility. So that concludes the introduction to the Achieve Ontario. Now we move on to actually issuing a certificate. There are some parts to this training where I have already done the pre-settings of the elements of the certificate. They are mainly pre-issuance system settings, which are very straightforward. And I will move through them by explaining using screenshots. I will end the training with a live demo of issuing an actual sample certificate. Right now, you won't be using the system along with me. Instead, observe the steps and guidelines. You can come back to the webcast as a refresher when you actually get your hands on issuing a certificate. A few important points to remember before you consider issuing a certificate. The Achieve certificate grows in value when you recognize significant contributions. And it helps to develop and make an organization-wide declaration on the criteria and metrics of what you feel it is significant. Let it determine what makes a position as a significant contribution to your organization's mission. For example, at Volunteer MBC, we don't issue an Achieve certificate to our step-up ambassadors. When they take part in individual volunteering projects or even an individual volunteering activity. For those events, we recognize them in other ways. But we issue an Achieve certificate to step-up ambassadors who concludes their full one-year term, capturing all of their contributions. Likewise, your definition of what is significant will depend on the nature of your volunteer program and your context. Also, by no way are we promoting that the Achieve Ontario system is to replace your existing strategy. It is one tool, a provincially implemented tool that you can include to elevate your strategy. Now, let's start creating our certificate elements. The first is to log into the system, of course. Type in achieveontario.ca to your browser and you will come to the Achieve Ontario system page. The position of the login is to the right-hand side of the website menus bar. After you log in, you will be then taken to your administration panel. The admin panel, you will see the system functions grouped into sections. The sections are named as certificate with functions to issue and manage certificates, certificate administration options with functions to input and preset the common elements of a certificate, organization administration with functions to manage the organizational details and its users, position description bank with sample position descriptions for you to reappropriate, and a toolbox with a repository of resources to help you understand how to make the most of the system. In this screen, I'm bringing up the admin panel with the entire list of functions I just mentioned. Access to these functions are in text links format. The functions available to you will depend on your user level. There are two user levels. One, the admin level, where you will have access to all of the functions. Two, the user level, where you will have access to be precise, creating certificate categories, adding users, and editing organizational information is exclusive to the admin level. You will have every other function in this list. Now, to issue a certificate, we start with feeding the pre-settings. They're all grouped under the certificate administration options. These settings should ideally be done when you have finalized the position design and published the position description. You can do it when you are issuing your first certificate too. However, I would encourage the first approach. These presets are in the respective order of their listing, adding 1. The position supervisor, 2. The position template itself. Along with that, you will add the skills and tasks. 3. Certificate categories. Finally, 4. The volunteers details. If I map them onto the certificate using the same numbers, here they are shown with the red numbered dots. Elements 1, 2, and 4 appear in the certificate. The certificate category, which was element 3, is mainly for convenience in organizing the certificates and searching. It will not appear on the certificate itself. Using screen samples, I'm going to now quickly explain these presets. They are very straightforward. It is only a matter of clicking the settings link from the admin panel and inputting the information. First, set your supervisor for the position. Include their name, email, phone, and image of their signature to appear on the certificate. That is it. You can now assign the supervisor to multiple positions. A word of caution here, in some of the forms, you will see an archive option. When you select archive, this record, this supervisor, will not be active anymore. It will not delete the record, but will save it as an inactive record. When you want to switch the record back to active, simply come back to the record and unselect the archive option. The next preset is to create a position template. An interesting point to mention when you are creating a position template, Achieve Ontario was primarily developed with the National Occupation Classifications, or NOC in short, as a foundational repository of positions. However, when we were creating certificates, we realized that our sector quite often uses a language that is unique to our sector when we describe position responsibilities and competencies. So what the Achieve Ontario team did was, we included a second repository of position templates and their related skills and tasks with our own language. Also, we enable the opportunity to add on your organization's specific position templates. So when you want to issue a certificate, you can select whether to go the NOC route or the specific sector-specific route. The sector-specific route is to the left-hand side of the screen. When you are creating a custom position template, you have to first create the template title. Next, assign the skills and tasks related to that position. Let's see how to do that. You will first click on the Add Edit Position Template link in your admin panel. You are then taken to the page with the list of existing templates. Click on the Add an Entry text link. Then the form will open up to input your position template information. In this form, you will find the fields: position template title, description to enter a short description, and to enter the most accurate NOC code information. After you enter the information, click Add. The next steps are to assign the skills and tasks to this position template. To assign the skills, click on the Add Edit Skills in the admin panel. The form will open up. Type in your skill and select the position template to assign the skill to the position. When you identify a skill in the Achieve Ontario system, you are referring to the cognitive and motor performance abilities required to carry out an activity related to the position deliverables. A task is an individual activity connected to the deliverable. This distinction comes in handy when we begin to issue the certificate. Next, we assign the task to the position. Click on Add Edit Task in the admin panel. The form will open up. Type in the task, as we did with the adding skills. Select the relevant position template to assign this task to the position. Click Add, and you're done. What you did now is you created a position template title, assigned its related skills, and assigned its related tasks, you have just designed a custom position to be added to your organization's position repository, and you will also realize that you just created a competency matrix. The next step in presettings is to add certificate categories. Click on the Add Edit a Certificate Category text link from the admin panel. The form will open up and simply type in your desired category. As I mentioned before, creating a certificate category is mainly for the convenience of organizing and searching for certificates after they have been issued. The category label will not appear on the certificate. Deciding on the categories is left to the organization's preference. For example, you can opt to categorize based on departments, events, or even by positions itself, if that is what you prefer. Coming to the final step in presets, add your volunteers, and the ideal time to do so is when the volunteer has been selected and engaged. To add a volunteer, click on Add Edit Volunteer from the admin panel. The form will open up. Enter the volunteer's name, email address, that are mandatory fields. You can also opt to tag the gender, age, and audience category based on your organization's policy of how you manage demographical data. Click Add, and you're done. And with that step, you have completed the presettings of the certificate. Now, the exciting activity is to issue an actual certificate by mixing and matching the presets. Click on the Create Edit Certificate text link in your admin panel. You will be taken to the page with the repository of existing certificates. To add a new certificate, click on the Add a Certificate with General Positions text link towards the right-hand side of the screen. Then the form to issue a certificate will open out for you. To show you how it is done, I am now switching to the live demo, so please bear with me. Sean, if you can let me know whether you see the Achieve Ontario system on your screen right now.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So as I said, I have preloaded some presets in the system, and I'm going to click on Add a Certificate with General Positions towards the top right-hand side, which is immediately after the menus bar. When I click on that, you can see the form opening up. And when we issue you the logins, we will already preload the name of your organization and the organization's logo and other contact details. So under name, you can see that in my sample organization I'm using to train you on is Volunteer MBC Learning Center. It's already preloaded. Then let's add a volunteer's name. We added the volunteer's name. I have already done that, and that is Jane Doe. If you remember, during the presets, we added the volunteer's name. Next, we have to add the position title. Now, over here, when you create a position template, that is to assign some tasks and skills to the foundational type of role that the volunteers will be taking on. But the public position title for public appearance and aesthetics may be different. So for the purpose of this training, the position template that I'm using is personal protective equipment distribution team members or agents. But the position title, the volunteer position title, I'm going to give it as Mask Marvel team member. Now the only dynamic variables are the number of hours. So for example, I will take that the Mask Marvel team member, this member had contributed 50 hours. If you wish to do so, you can have a start and end date. I would highly recommend to include at least a start date. So I'm going to go by 1st of May. And I'm going to have this volunteer will be engaged with us until the 31st of May. During the presets, we already entered a supervisor. So I have entered Jennifer Smith, who's a supervisor, as a preset. And now over here in the certificate, to add the task and the skills, I need to pull up the position template and pull it up by title. So I'm going to select, because I already preloaded the system, preset the system, I already have it here. Personal protective equipment distribution assistance. Oops. I selected that, and the task and the skills assigned to this particular position template appears in front of me right now. So over here, I'm going to select some tasks. So when we select the tasks, there could be certain tasks that are not relevant to this particular volunteer position. For example, a Mask Marvels team member, one category of volunteers could be team leaders, that is leading a group of volunteers, and the other category could be volunteers who belong to a team. So anything related to leadership will have to be assigned to those team leaders, and that's not relevant, you leave it out from the general team members. For today's sample certificate, I am going to issue the certificate to a general team member. So let's see how I make my selections. I'm not going to use schedule coordination of assigned PPE distribution teams. That is a leadership role. I'm not going to use deliver training and orientation to the volunteer teams, but I'm going to use log report outcomes, collect the PPEs from the collection centers, adhere to public health and safety measures while representing the organization. Okay, so I'm going to select those three. So you can see from the competency matrix that we created while we are creating the position template, I'm selecting these three which is relevant to this particular volunteer. And as the skills, so those were the tasks, and as the skills, I'm going to select able to lift and reposition packages that weigh up to 35 pounds, drive a vehicle, provide a memorable service experience to clients, community knowledge and awareness, presentation and facilitation to groups either in person or via online video conferencing system. I'm not going to use that because that is a leadership role. And I'm going to remain, for the purpose of time, I'm going to remain with just these 4 skills. So I'm going to summarize back again. I selected the task activities, I selected the skills competencies, and now there are 2 elements or 2 sections of the certificate that you can customize and use. One is to enter training and achievements. Volunteer MBC, we generally call it only achievements, but we include all the training and achievements. So I would say volunteer orientation on personal protection. I'm going to give an achievement over here, exam customer service award. I'm just going to leave those 2. And under this particular box where it's meant particularly made for any comments, you can add a comment that either boosts the volunteer's contribution a little bit, or you can add a comment saying if you want to get in touch with the contents of the certificate, here are the contact details. So I'm going to make a short comment over here. Okay. And if you remember, during the presets, we set up the certificate categories. So over here, I did preset it with crisis response. I'm going to select that. And remember the archive option. So make sure that you are not selecting archive if you're issuing it for the first time. And I'm quite happy with the information that I have included. So again, the elements are name of the organization, volunteer's name, position title, number of hours, the volunteering period, the supervisor, because we need to pick the supervisor's signature as well as the contact information. We selected the position template titles for us to pick up the tasks and the skills. We have two free text boxes over here. So first one is to highlight training and achievements. Over here, I put it as achievements and gave them to a list of 2 achievements. Over here, there's a free text comment section, and I made a comment over here. I selected the certificate category, so on a later day, it's easier for me to pull up the or search the certificate. And I'm going to issue the certificate straight away. Click issued, and I'm going to save. When you save, how you know that the certificate is saved is if you look towards the right hand side, there are 2 options, print full certificate or print short certificate. When these 2 options appear, you know your certificate is saved. Now, if you're looking at the screen and if you wonder what are these tabs, add a volunteer, add a supervisor, add a task, and add a skill, these are the same tabs to the presets that I explained before. And this is to add those information if you are doing it, creating the certificate on the fly. I don't recommend that. There may be a need for that, for short projects, but I do recommend doing the presets well in advance and issue the certificate when it's time to issue the certificate. So we've created our certificate. Let's see how the certificate looks like. Sean, can you confirm to me that you see the sample certificate?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so here you go. Here are the elements and on the certificate, and this is what your certificate will look like. This is page 1, the front side. And over here, you see the rear side. You can see onto the bottom left-hand side, your organization's logo will appear here. Your supervisor's information and the signature will appear over here towards the center. And to the right-hand side, you have the project delivery partners of leading the project in Ontario, Volunteer MBC and the OVCN. And you also have the certificate number, which is quite long, but it is a reference number given to identify the certificate. Okay, so that's it. That's all to issuing a certificate. I'm going to switch back to my presentation here. Well, you have now issued an achieved certificate. I took all this time to explain, but you will realize that it takes less than 5 minutes to actually issue a certificate. Okay, so where do we go from here? This was our system training. When you want to sign up to use the system, first download the organization and user agreements and send it to us via the training@volunteermbc.org email address. Once we have received and processed the request, we will then send you the login information. With that, I will say thank you for participating in this training, and I hand over the session to the open forum for any questions and discussions. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Shaminda. That was an excellent review of all of the factors that go into an achieved certificate. I think people will really appreciate that it combines both the skills side of things as well as the recognition piece in a very convenient way, but also adding the credibility. So really appreciate that. Into the chat box, we've added the link to the Achieve Organization Agreement and Achieve User Agreement. And when you complete that, then certainly you can get connected into the system and begin issuing certificates at your own organization. But especially in this COVID-19 time, really important for us to be able to engage with our organizations, engage with our community, and think of how can we use this as an opportunity, not as as strictly a time of challenges, where we can uplift our organizations and uplift our volunteers. So this is going to be a really great asset. So first of all, let's go in and take a look and see with anyone who has any additional questions. So Teresa had asked in the chat, can we have these professionally printed on cardstock?
Yes, John. So all you need is the cards, the blank cardstock. And once you have issued the certificate, you can print it in your own printer, because the system is for you to use, and you will be using it on a daily basis. Hopefully, you're using it on a daily basis, just as you would do with a volunteer management system. And once you've issued the certificate, all you need to do is to print it on cardstock.
Great. And you spoke to the matter of logins and the issuing of the user agreement. So that was one question around how to get the login information. This essentially, once they complete the user agreement and organization agreement, then they would be issued a login for one user, correct?
Correct, that's right.
Great. Okay, and were there any other questions people had on the technical side of it? Okay, we've got some hands up here. One second. Let's see here. So Derek's got his hand up. So Derek.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. That was a great presentation, Shaminda. Thank you very much. I have a few questions. I think the certificate's great. I'm trying to get some more clarification though on sort of, you mentioned, and I completely agree, that the position needs to be significant. So you mentioned that you do certificates for some positions at Volunteer NBC, but not all of them. And I think that makes sense. Sort of, what would the definition be of significant? I mean, I know we each have what we think is significant, but what would sort of the definition or checklist be for determining what would be significant on a consistent basis for all of us, so we're sort of compliant, so we're not, because we all appreciate our volunteers and we all think they do a great job, but in the sense of the certificate, we wouldn't be giving them out to all our volunteers. So I'm just trying to determine what would be the benchmark for determining what's a significant position.
Yes, certainly. Good question, Derek. When you receive the logins, you will also have access to the toolbox in the system itself. And in that toolbox, when you click on it, you will have a resource that is talking about the guidelines of issuing an Achieve certificate. So please be guided with that guideline. Now, essentially, in short, what these guidelines tells you is, Derek, what determines as significant is based on your organization's context. Now, in the case of the city of Mississauga, you have multiple locations, multiple programs, and multiple facilities that you engage volunteers with. So the organization can decide whether you're going to go based on the number of hours, the number of days, or the duration of their volunteer engagement. And when you do that, keep in mind, like as we always advocate in the voluntary sector, sometimes a volunteer who comes for 1 week can make a very grand contribution to the organization than a volunteer who stays on for about 1 year. So it's for you to decide, Derek. And also, if it's a small organization, when your organization has only a very lean staff pool, and you have a volunteer who comes and gives all of their skill sets that really augment the organization, builds the capacity of the organization, to me that is significant, even though the volunteer may have been engaged just for 2 weeks. So you can go based on hours, you can go based on the duration of their volunteering tenure, you can go based on the project that they have participated in. For example, during the summer games, whether it's the Seniors 55 or the Youth Summer Games, a person who was in a stadium ushering the spectators, they would they would make a significant contribution because they are standing for long hours. They are meeting with a lot of people. They will make spot decisions. They are in a environment where they have to be in a large crowd. So that is a significant contribution, as opposed to you have a small like a summer barbecue event, and you have an usherer who's ushering the parking lot. So the organization needs to, like all departments need to come into a consensus and declare these are our significant guidelines of what would make it significant.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That makes perfect sense to me. Just quickly, a couple, one or two just quick questions here, so I don't hog this. Sorry. How many users again? Because, for example, for us, we have so many different divisions and departments. I would not know any of the individuals like in the other departments. Is it sort of unlimited use of users? That's my first question. And two is, would you guys be able to present this to sort of a group of our different divisions so they could all see it, as opposed to me trying to hack my way through it?
Another excellent question, Derek. This recording will be available on our site ongoing. Like, there will be a Achieve Ontario page in Volunteer NBC's website, so you can use the recording to orient your peers. But if you want us to come in, please do speak to us, and we will be happy to acknowledge and see how that can be done. And in terms of the number of users, for 2020, to organizations who have not signed up, City of Mississauga, you have direct, so I think you have about 3 or 4. But to the benefit of everybody else, if you have not signed up already, for rest of 2020, we give you one administration login that gives you all the functionalities, one login for this year. But starting 2021, we are going to come up with a new sort of a membership model, and there will be a definition as to how we are going to offer Achieve Ontario to our member organizations.
Thank you, Shaminda.
You're welcome, Derek.
Great questions, Derek. Thank you. Robert's got your hand up. You have something to add?
Yes. I'm being informed, and I'm a colleague. I'm just curious, and I think a lot of other people would be curious, whether you're a volunteer or a member organization. What is the feedback been by the various, I guess you could say, stakeholders about the Achieve certificate? For example, if I'm a high school student and I'm building an academic resume, and I get involved, say, with Step Up for Volunteer NBC, in all likelihood, I'll end up with an Achieve certificate. How is that, to your knowledge, how is that being received by post-secondary admissions offices, for example? And a sort of parallel to that is a newcomer comes to Canada, has certain skill sets, makes an intelligent decision by saying, I'm going to get involved in what we call relationship volunteering in order to build my domestic or adopted country resume in my adopted country. And they do a successful job vis-a-vis what the community service organization thinks. They get an Achiever certificate. How, in your experience, has that been received by the pool of potential employers for that newcomer?
Excellent question, Robert. From the feedback that we have received so far, our volunteers, the high school and the post-secondary students, they have come back to us. Some of them have come back to us and said that the Achieve certificate itself had, lit up the prospective, the potential employers, and because of that they found it credible. Because what Achieve does, it gives you a legitimate document that any employer can trust and have faith in when they're assessing the skills. So we've had youth who had come back to us, and also newcomers and various other adult volunteers. Corinne, is there any feedback that people have told you that you want to add in?
Thanks, Shaminda. Yes, absolutely. And I put a little bit in the chat box as well. But I think for a lot of the volunteers, even the volunteers that we have engaged, specifically referring to a newcomer that came here highly skilled, but had no Canadian experience to show on her resume, she was able to use that to gain employment not just gain employment, but employment in her specific field. So definitely it really works. And that's just talking for Volunteer in BC, but in speaking with other volunteer centers from across the Ontario Volunteer Centre network, and even Volunteer Canada, in Quebec as well, this has been a tool that has been hugely beneficial because for the volunteer, it really addresses the what's in it for me, and that's kind of what I explained. Even if it's to demonstrate, not necessarily you may already have those skills, but maybe even to demonstrate some of the soft skills that are very hard to show with your academic certificate.
Thank you, Corinne. So to the forum, can I flip a question this way? From our peers in the forum today, how do you foresee using Achieve in your organization, especially if you have not signed up already, now that we've offered it for free for the rest of the year? How do you foresee using it, and is there a value to your organization?
Hi, Shaminda, it's Derek again. I think there'd be a value to it. For me, there's a lot of back-end work, creating the templates, which I can see how beneficial it is, like you said, because once it's created, you can just choose from them. For me, I would see moving forward to do this, it would be done through each of our different divisions. For example, I work for recreation, but then there would be the library, then there's culture, and sometimes within each of those divisions or there's actually even more breakdown. So it's just figuring it out from the beginning, but I can see the benefit once it's like put in place. And again, I'm not 100% confident that I understand exactly the other users past the administrator, but if once that's all in place, I can definitely see how it would be there. It's consistent, it's got the logo, it's got all that other thing. So once you can pre-do it, as opposed to us just trying to make different certificates for significant positions, I can see it being a good tool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Derek. And if you remember the pre-settings of categories, I think it might be helpful to you. I'm just assuming if you categorize based on your departments or locations. And also, if you speak to me, Derek, I will be able to let you know who are the other users who are already in there for the city of Mississauga.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
And
Okay,
Lori of Holland Christian Homes has responded or observed in chat. I can foresee using this for international nurses wanting to show linguistic competency and volunteer hours towards RPN, registered practical nursing, or RN licensing requirements. So again, I think that's indicative of the kind of transitional legitimacy that an Achieve certificate has.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laurie, for that.
Shaminda, could you maybe speak to, I know you spoke to the top about the knock codes, but there's quite a volume of skills and tasks in the Achieve database. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So in terms of like how organizations can so Lori's commenting about the nurses, and there's other organizations that will have different frontline types of volunteers. Is there a way we can kind of contextualize how it reaches like very many different audiences?
Yes, so the knock codes, Sean, is mainly like it's more business language, right? It's the language, it's by the government of Canada. Let me pull up the website for knock. Do you see the website, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah. And so by the government of Canada, you have the National Occupational Classification. And over here, they have made things easy for us based on skill set, the groups of skill sets that form a profession. So once you type in your knock code, or even, for example, let's say, let me get the samples that I used over here. So if I say delivery for our Mask Marvels and click search, it will give me all the profession or fields that are related to making deliveries. And Also the knock code, then the numeric knock code is mentioned over here. So with that, I scroll down, and if you remember, like when you have a chance to go back to the recording, you will see the knock code 7514. What is that? Delivery and courier service drivers. So from that is where I picked up the skills from. And what I did as for the example, I just picked up this first one and reappropriate the language to our language, to the sector language. And so this is the beauty of Achieve Ontario. When you are creating a position description, you can toggle between the Achieve Ontario system and the knock codes and see what goes into a position of that particular knock code's flavor. And it will make it easier for you to design the role. So likewise, going back to our chat. So likewise, you can use the knock codes to sort of create a position in alignment with whatever the for-profit sector or the employment fields language would be when they're creating a position. So that when and like I said during the presentation, you can choose to go the knock route, and the selection of skills and tasks are all preloaded based on the knock code, National Occupation Classification website. We've made it easy for you, taken everything out and put it onto the Achieve system. So you can go the knock route, which will mostly help actually the post-secondary students who are coming to you as a co-op placement or a practicum placement. So when they take the certificate to an employer, the employer is reading the language that they are used to, right? But we also left the option on the right-hand side as general positions to have our own way of presenting a position.
So Derek asks, can we do a combo of knock and non-knock?
You cannot do a combo. So good question, Derek. You cannot do a combo of knock and non-knock. You'll have to remain within one route. But my suggestion, Derek, is to when you're creating the position template, to go to the knock website, which I have just pulled up on the screen, and then copy paste and reappropriate the language that does not deviate too much from what knock has said, but is very close to what our sector would like to present the language as. I hope that answered Derek's question.
But do you also have some ability to do some kind of custom skills?
Yes, Sean. So if you remember, when I was going through the presets, when we are creating the position template title, essentially step one, what we did was we created the title of the position and we entered the relevant knock codes for our reference. And using that created position template title, we were adding our own skills, and while we are adding the skills, we were assigning the skill to the position template title. And we did the same thing when we were doing the tasks as well.
So theoretically, using that, you might be able to do something akin to the combination of knock and non-knock.
Yes, when you're creating the certificate, you choose one route, but when you're creating the position templates, you can bring the knock flavor into it.
Great. There's a few more comments here. We could get them before closing. So Kathy at Eden Food for Change has said, I can see using this for our high school students that excel while volunteering with us, as well as recognizing the volunteers that are helping daily during the pandemic, an excellent way to recognize their service during this time. Thank you. So that's one great comment there. Another one from Julia. I can see this being useful for students. This summer is going to be different for many people. I know many parents are looking for opportunities for their children to be involved in their community. I think this tool would appeal to parents and students at this time because they're getting something tangible, therefore making your organization's volunteer program more appealing. Okay, great. And I think before we close, Shaminda, maybe you can comment a little bit about how COVID-19 sort of puts an exclamation point on this.
Actually, COVID-19, like with the Toronto 2015 games, it gave us our first opportunity to promote a provincially recognized, government of Ontario supported, and a reputed, legitimate document to the volunteers of the Toronto 2015 games. But now with the COVID-19 and the ways that volunteers are going above and beyond their call of volunteer duties, they are making very significant contributions, because you have to take the context into the picture. They are going beyond the barriers that the COVID-19 had put in front of us. And I would consider in our sector that is our second wave of opportunity to build the credibility of such a certificate, the Achieve Ontario certificate, as well as to build a case for volunteer engagement. I know our peers in the sector would appreciate that, because if you really look at it right now, the sector that's balancing the economy is the social purpose sector.
Right. And more adoption of the Achieve certificates by more organizations will lead to a sort of reinforced, a stronger credibility even within Peel and
Right.
other and whichever region people are connected to. Okay, I think we're just about out of time. Do you have any additional questions or comments in the chat, or Shaminda, do you have anything else to add before we adjourn?
From my side, Chan, is to echo what you just mentioned. Use the Achieve Ontario system, use this opportunity that's been given to you, and also to share the story of the volunteers, and maybe with an image of them holding the Achieve Ontario certificate, because it can be issued digitally and the volunteer themselves can print it at home. And to please use the hashtag Achieve Certificate, and please tag your local volunteer center if you're out of Peel, if you're in Peel, volunteer MBC, as well as the Ontario Volunteer Center Network in your social media posts. The more we do that, the more we start to build the awareness as well as the credibility of Achieve Ontario.
Okay, thank you, Shaminda. So our materials on this session and all our recorded sessions will be available on our Versus COVID-19 page shortly. And we really thank everybody for participating today. Next week, Robert, do you want to just mention our topic for next week?
Yes, thanks, Sean. Next week, we're putting together I think, a very thoughtful hour and a very timely hour. And the working title we've got right now is Techie Tips and Tricks to Transition in 2020 and Beyond. And I'd only add to that, Volunteer NBC being at the forefront of the COVID-19 emergency when it comes to volunteering. We've seen certain trends, and we readily realize that there's a very steep learning curve involved with some of the internet communication tools and accesses that are now being very aggressively promoted by various organizations such as Microsoft, the Zoom people, and so forth. We see trends, and we know that ultimately there will probably be a new normal that will involve much more use of these tools and processes. So certainly I'm looking forward to next week's e-forum about this, because we're not going to get too technical, but what I think we will be doing is basically showing you what the relevancy is, so that we hope that you'll end up being absolutely fearless about getting involved in the virtual ways and means of volunteering, and serve your volunteers and those you ultimately benefit through intelligent and efficient use of the internet.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Catherine is now exiting.
Okay, just us, everyone.